Don't no good like there's all this talk about there's such a diversity of styles that the feeds this Valorant casting. Okay, in a sense that's true. And in a sense you can't help casting in a way that you're used to casting. But if you don't develop and tailor your own specific approach to Valorant because it's Valorant and it's not like the other games, if you don't come at it differently because it is a different game, you're let's move on to something a little bit different. Listen, this show, typically we're all casters on this show, right? So quite often, we have a unique opportunity to discuss casting a little bit in Valorant because it's an annoyingly hot topic right now. I don't know why it is, but it is. So I just want to start a conversation with the two of you, and maybe chat as well to a degree, around casting in Valorant, because Bok, obviously a friend of ours now I just want to make this very clear. Bok is a caster who has been on the VCTs. He is also the talent manager at Nerd Street Gamers. He decides who casts what. Just want to make that very clear. He sort of says that the hardest part about casting Valorant is, I think, the fans having certain expectations of the casters, or just lately the audience has become much more vocal with their opinions. Reddit appreciation threads are countered by hate on socials. This caster is too hype, followed by these casters don't even care about the game. So I think that what Mark is referring to is that people are kind of vocal about the quality of casting in Valorant. Obviously even DDK and Sean Gares sort of got a little bit of hate as well. And he believes that the reason that people are vocal about casting is because everyone comes to Valorant from their own backgrounds. So he sort of says that people have their own sort of style. And so casters from Game A might be used to hyping, where casters from Game B are more analytical. So he is implying basically that casters are coming to Valorant and they're very much using the style that they used in previous games. So he sort of says that as Valorant continues to grow, we'll continue to see new styles, new approaches. Casters bring their own personal flair to the show. We'll take all the features we like and build a unified voice and tone for Valorant. So what he's sort of saying is that eventually these different styles are going to sort of come together. It sounds like he's saying it's going to homogenize things a little bit. Obviously we need to stop pretending there's one way to cast this game. You might think a certain style is the best because it's all you've ever known or experiencing. I mean, this tweet here is, I want to read through this because it's quite a big threat, but he's sort of saying, there is a reason why you like certain casters and don't like others is because it's what you're used to. So the crux of this, what I can see is that, he is saying that people are too harsh on casters, or that people have such a set in stone idea of what they want to see in Valorant casting that it's having, I guess, an impact in some sense on how casters are sort of getting feedback and being treated. Have I encompassed this correctly, Vance? Is that really the crux of what Bok is trying to say here?
I think the way I see it, and I paraphrase it by reading through all that, it's hey, let's just give the casters a chance. Let's give the community a chance to grow together, because the game is still new. And it seems as though that maybe there's potential that nobody really knows how to cast the game yet for Valorant, right? And maybe one style is going to go well. One style from Overwatch, for example, coming into Valorant. If you're used to Overwatch and coming into it, then there's a potential where we could pick it and nitpick a few things and then mesh it with, for example, some Rainbow Six, or mesh it with some CSGO, and then eventually becomes a Valorant thing. But I feel that personally, you could already have your Valorant style from the get-go. I don't think I feel that if right now, if let's say you're coming from a different game but you're still too used to that game, then there's a possibility that there wasn't enough studying done into this current game to know how the flow of the game actually goes. So I think that there's still a basis in terms of how Valorant should be casted, and whatever, for example, intonation or your own personal style to bring your voice from that different game into this one could be applied into your tone and how you actually let's take it for the biggest example. I think this also stems from the amount of criticism that came from, at least in my opinion, from Intero and Kix casting over the last weekend, 100%. Right? So looking at that, Intero and Kix for me are amazing fucking casters. When it comes down to the audience saying that Parker and Michael don't hype the game up enough and stuff like that too. Look at their fucking clips in Rainbow Six. They've had so many highlight reels of casting in Rainbow Six that's been like in the Hall of Fame of like Rainbow Six casting at least, and for the scenes that they had for like invitationals and whatnot, the SIs and the majors of the world for Rainbow Six. But because the game of Rainbow Six itself has like a fucking 45-second prep phase plus a 3-minute fucking round time, then they're so accustomed to like dragging on the conversation until action happens that it was caught off guard when action could potentially happen 5-10 seconds into a round in Valorant. So I think if you take it with a grain of salt and look at it objectively, I still think that if their goal was set a certain standard to say we want to try to hit this, which I believe that they did, because I was sitting on Discord with them while they were practicing for like the last 2 days, actually, before they actually went on air, because they were watching all the VODs. So I feel that they've reached their goal, but maybe it wasn't at the standard of a Valorant fan who really follows like the scene and like the competition and the storylines of these teams, and at least of the rounds that actually happen. So you give that time, yes, it should happen. They'll eventually get it. But was it the right stage to do it right there? I think maybe potentially that's the thing, right? I'll let you guys talk about it.
Their first cast comes at a pretty sort of, critical point, I guess.
At a high, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't really like. I get it because, these are great established casters. If you see other people from Siege coming through, which seems to be a lot of people at the moment, which is interesting.
Sure.
Let's say somebody like Jess as well, like comes in and casts that sort of level, like you understand why these casters get that opportunity. They're much more established. They are professionals. They have talents that somebody like me that sort of worked the way up just the old-fashioned way, I am not as good a caster as them, and it will take me years upon years to be anything close to them, because not only are they working at the top tier, they've done this for longer, and they've done it in a regular circuit and been able to get consistent feedback at that point. I just think that it's a bit weird to have them kind of come in and say, like, it was our first cast, we made a lot of mistakes, to be at that point, right? It's not that I find it because you look at some of the other casters that are sort of a part of that. We didn't see Simo or Bala, for example, and the assumption would be based off of that, they might be doing the Challengers finals, right, North America. So like there's plenty of opportunities for people to throw in people like that, but it is a bit odd to have these casters come in. Their energy didn't bother me, like the mistakes that they made, not spotting at tens was on a mad lurk and stuff. It doesn't bother me. It's just one of those ones where it's like, I'm not really a fan of just these established casters from other games just immediately sort of cutting into big games like this.
It should never happen. You guys remember the first Valorant thing I casted?
It was C9. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, charity event.
Yeah. Why do you think I didn't do VCT before that? Well, first of all, it was at the end of last year. But I didn't want my first fucking... I wanted my Valorant debut to be like an a B stream or like a fucking... I would have done a monthly. You know what I mean? The problem is you have to pay... You had to pay me. So like, most games aren't paying like full rate for it, or like my rate for a monthly. The budget isn't there for that. So I had to like find a way to like... And I said this time and time again. I'll make sure I'm not taking away the gains from people that deserve it, but I want to get in and get that chance. There's a whole lot to unpack here for me personally, but I want to say this first. If you come into and you cast it like the game you came from, you're dog shit. You're a dog shit caster. Or you're so wrapped up in how good you think you are from that previous game that you think that style is the style. I'll just spot that right away. I'll be like, you're dog shit. No good like there's all this talk about there's such a diversity of styles that the feeds this Valorant casting. Okay, in a sense that's true, and in a sense you can't help casting in a way that you're used to casting. But if you don't develop and tailor your own specific approach to Valorant because it's Valorant and it's not like the other games, if you don't come at it differently because it is a different game, you're shit. You have no fucking idea how to do your job. You got lucky and then you just built a fucking routine in a different game, and you have the audacity to think that it applies. Even fucking DDK is like Valorant's way different to Counter-Strike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I don't like this rhetoric around like everyone's bringing their own style. Okay, everyone's bringing their individual styles, yes, but if they're bringing like, and that style might be influenced by a different game. Like if you come in here, people can't do it, mate. They do it. I know they do this because they're too lazy to come up with their own heuristic that's specific to Valorant. It's actually super disrespectful, and the fact that these people get opportunities kind of blows my mind.
It's like you cast in Overwatch in a Counter-Strike way, which is something that you didn't do, right? Same with like Semler and stuff. I mean, you take fundamentals and stuff that really works when it comes to narrative, you know, building it up and stuff like that. Casting it almost like a fighting game, right? You can't talk about every single thing that happens in Overwatch. You have to talk about the bigger picture to an extent, right? You can't be like, all right, the Zarya used to grab, the Reinhardt used to Earthshatter. Like, you've got to kind of find the main narrative. And DDK did a really good post about how to cast and stuff. And yeah, I do agree to an extent that it almost feels that you lack self-awareness if you go from one game into the other and just assume that you'll be able to cast it the exact same way.
I eat those casters for breakfast, baby. I fucking
and it's also like
I've been doing it my whole career, mate.
I also feel like, this is my personal opinion on this, as a pretty low energy caster myself, if you're low energy and you can't sort of hit the highs when you need to, you better know what the fuck you're talking about. Otherwise, why should people listen to you? Because you're bringing the energy down, and really you want to make sure that what you're saying is important, right? And so it's finding that balance. You could sort of say anything. You could say legendary stuff, you know, like the simple "what is that? That's not allowed" kind of stuff, when it all comes together. But as a color caster, especially if you're low energy and you don't really understand the game and what the teams are doing functionally, what the hell are you doing there, right? There's so many people that are grinding their ass off that have been given opportunities. But yeah, it's not so much specific to Intero or Kicks. I thought they did well, and like it was just one of those things where it's like it's fine. Like I get it, it's fine, it's whatever.
I know they wanted more from the overall. I think when I spoke to Parker, he said like the first game was kind of rough because he had to erase like years of pacing.
Yes.
Of like, but I mean that they practice casted, so they did their work. But like, with all due respect, yes, you should do that. You should have different pacing. You know what I mean? You should approach it differently. I think also it's a unique challenge because I haven't cast Valorant with Matt. You know what I mean? So I think there might be some habits that are hard to break because you're casting with the same person. Like in Valorant, I cast with someone different. So I want to move through this a little bit. I do want to give you guys some chance to talk to some of the thread because there's some responses here that I want to discuss a little bit or get your take on them. So there's a whole thread from Bok. Obviously, what he's saying is that the most challenging part about Valorant is that I think is that like the expectations of the viewers. I think that's kind of the crux of it. Here's a response here from Lex, who, for those that don't know, was casting with Doug as his color commentator. Obviously, someone with a very storied history in FPS. Did cast some Counter-Strike as well with Lauren. I remember watching them together. Felt that he had a really good mind for the game, was good at articulating that. Pretty straightforward response. Just ignore that shit, right? Like, you know, and I think that this is we're kind of on the right track here. This is why I don't know why these threads exist. I don't know why these threads exist. Because, like, you know what I mean? And we don't have it here, but Bok responds to him like, oh, that doesn't bother me. I got thick skin, you know what I mean? Bok, you're in Twitch chat while you're casting, mate. Like, I see you in Twitch chat. And here's the thing, I like you personally, I like you. Professionally, I disagree with the fact that you sit in fucking Twitch chat while you cast, mate.
I mean, Pansy and Hypod do it as well, just to throw them under the bus.
Well, in fairness,
a lot of people
they're also doing like the more meme approach, like the meme center stuff. But I don't think casters should be in Twitch chat at all because you're usually there to fish for compliments, and then you're susceptible to negativity there as well. So don't put like I'm confused. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is saying because he says here like this is the hardest part about casting Valorant is that people's expectations are like this. But then he's also like, well, I don't care about that. But then, you know, like, do you care? Too many of you cunts in Valorant, you fucking care too much, man. Like, if half of you just shut the fuck up on Twitter about how people react to your casting and just grew a pair and fucking did your job, this wouldn't be a problem. People wouldn't even be talking about it. It's like the more that you talk about, you know, the people are like, the more that happens, the more people talk about it. Like, it's not about you. It's just not about you at all. Like, really, if you just did your job and did it well, then like no one will give a fuck, mate. People are more interested in the players and the stories and stuff. If you do your job and tell the right stories, and highlight the players and put the spotlight on the people that the spotlight's supposed to be on, this wouldn't be a problem. You self-aggrandizing fucks. Nobody cares. You are there to tell a story. You are not the protagonist. Get rid of that complex and learn how to be a fucking caster. And this is just in general. Just stop this shit. You know, Richard Lewis has obviously made multiple videos about like Valorant pros are soft, and like there were some about like the way that they react to the casting. Imagine just ignoring that shit. You know, take some of David Dennis's advice and just sit on the park bench and watch your thoughts just race past you on the highway. But don't engage with them. Just watch them go. Fuck's sake. Like this is so annoying. You have so many people that you can actually get feedback from, like your peers, and you choose to get it from the lowest common denominator of people. Like I'm so
we said it many
fucking
times.
Sick.
Said it many times
so
already.
Sick of this, man.
So many times we said it. Like stop fishing for compliments or whatever on Reddit threads or even there. Like even replies going on Reddit from Box Thread was like, yeah, man, like I get it. There's no real way to cast a game right now, but what do you think about my casting? Like give me some advice and I'll listen to it. And then you start like, oh yeah, okay, I accept it, and I'll try to do better next time and shit. And it's just like you're never gonna be able to please everybody at once in the first place. And the second of all is just fucking read it, and if it does affect you, then self-reflect with it. That's what I do. At the same time, like when First Strike was announced, and then somebody said Vince, like I love this talent right now. Vencilli is a charity case. And then in my head, I was like, okay, imposter syndrome. Why am I a charity? Right?
I take it back.
No, so then like,
I was really angry. What can I say? I'm perpetually angry.
I'm like, why am I a charity case? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And I just self-reflect. I re-listen to my broadcasts. I try to figure out where I may slip, where I might be missing some key points in my casting, and I study that and I get better through my broadcast and listening and seeing how I could just improve from cast to cast. And if it's not from getting if it's like, oh, but there's not enough opportunities as a caster, blah, blah, blah. There's so much footage right now for you to be able to practice your casting and re-listen to yourself. And like Uber said, from who can you get your feedback from your peers? So do the practice. If you think you've made it or you think you've evolved from your previous broadcast, feel free to fucking message any of your peers and see if they're available to like check the VOD with you, right? Yeah, I'm fucking right at this point. Like if you're going to continue to let this shit affect you, you're always going to have an imposter syndrome trying to make it into like where you want to be in your career in casting. And I think it's just like swallow it with pride and just fucking don't have to be vocal about it. Just if you think you need some work, if what you read affects you, then fucking just fix it without trying to argue and justify your casting style.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that on Reddit, right? We saw people. Sorry, Golden Falcon, I'm calling you out here. I saw like him actually sort of talk through why he commentated the way that he did on Reddit, and I'm like, well, I don't know what the purpose of this is. I found that really bizarre.
He didn't like hype up a judge ace or something like that. I remember that. I think the main thing, certainly from like years of being a YouTuber as well, it's kind of like the whole don't look at the YouTube comments kind of stuff. But for one, that's your audience that you're just ignoring because you feel that you're just better than what people can bring you. I think that, yeah, obviously when people are chatting shit and, like there's like VODs and stuff of some of the games that I've casted where people are like, this guy's putting me to sleep. I'm just kind of like, fuck that. Clearly this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but it is something that I'm actively working on. If I ignored everybody that said that and I was casting at, a pretty low level like this all of the time, I wouldn't be improving, right? I think the main thing for casters overall is they're looking for that instant sense of gratification and respect. I think a good example of this is like with DDK saying like be an expert in the scene. And I saw on Reddit talk about it and it's kind of like, oh, why is Sideshow and stuff not casting? And it's like, as if Sideshow is the only expert on Valorant when it comes to like color casting in the scene. That like why wasn't Vancilli mentioned? Why weren't people like Hypok or even Mitchman, who's a literal analyst for a team, that are mentioned as being experts in the game? Because nobody gives a fuck, right? Exactly. It's just content creators and those entertaining people. I love Sideshow and stuff, and it's like Sean Garris gets a lot of credit too. But let's not pretend that these are the only people that know how to talk about Valorant. So, like, I'm not including myself here, but I did YouTube videos on the esports scene, and then suddenly people were calling me an EU expert. Like, I know a good amount, but am I fuck? Like, I am not an expert in this scene. I have a long way to go. But it's people's like warped sense of like, this guy knows what he's talking about because he has like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube or he streams to 1,000 people. That's not how you get it. Do you think anybody that won like caster or color cast of the year, first of all, actually gave a shit about the award, or secondly, was looking for that gratification? No, they just came in to do their job, fixed it themselves without the help of Reddit or anybody else. They looked at it and tried to improve it on their own, as opposed to thinking that it's okay until a peer comes along and says, this isn't good, fix this. It's just one of those things where it's like, you will not get recognition of being a good caster until like 2 or 3 years time, maybe until you're a franchise caster in one of those leagues, right? It's not even, you're not going to get the credit that you deserve until you make it.
Even that doesn't matter anymore. Like, for me, to be honest, like if you're gonna go through a Reddit thread and people are gonna be like, Sean Garrison DDK best casters, Uber best caster, Ryan Central best color commentator. If my name is not mentioned, I don't really give a fuck. I'm still getting events, which I tend to believe that I'm doing the right thing. And at the same time, it's just like, if you and to get back on topic, right? To get back on topic where we're at and why this thread came out and like, oh yeah, there's no real weight of casting right now. I believe that there is still some sort of basis to be able to cast a game. Watch the fucking VODs. You'll understand at what point, as a play-by-play, by watching a set strat, the lurk play, the abilities that are being used at the beginning of the round. Then as a play-by-play, okay, how do I apply this into my broadcast? When should I pass it to my color commentator after that? What should the color commentator do during this pause? And then once it gets back into the action, should I continue with it? Should I pass the mic? Like, all of this could be theory crafted just by watching VODs. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean because you have never casted the game or come from a different game that this game, there's no way of casting it. There is a way of casting it, which is why, like, we're getting some amazing broadcasts so far in the
there's
the
at least
big
like
stage.
There's a spectrum of casting it, right? I think there is not good Valorant casting and there is good Valorant casting, right? And I actually don't think that's very subjective. You know, like I think there is like a Venn diagram or something like that. You know what I mean? I want to bring up another Twitter response to this thread. This is just it's a discussion that I sort of see on repeat, and it's a little bit tiring for me, but I do this so I can address some of these things. All right, so this is Tom Battinger here. He's been a commentator on Smite primarily for quite some time. I love this guy. I actually work with him on Brawl Stars. So he responds to this thread sort of saying, so first of all, I like this. He points out that, oh wait, I didn't think that there's going to be a homogenization of styles. Now, this could also be a misinterpretation of how Bok put it, but I don't think we're going to have everyone casting the same way. Maybe what Bok is trying to say is that there will be a rough sort of, a rough similarity between casting styles in Valorant. So more that the different styles we appreciated. Can tell you that's a fact in Overwatch for sure. Commentary is subjective. Whoa. Okay, so usually like what you're used to. That might be fair. Okay, so this is a little bit dangerous because the assumption is that like 100% of commentary is subjective. I see bad casters use this as an excuse. Actually, I see like casters that are like, oh, I got bad feedback on Reddit, but fuck it, I mean, like it's just really a matter of opinion. You know, I mean, it's subjective. This is a danger for up and coming casters. This is a dangerous trap to get into because if you just say that that casting is subjective, that means that you actually can escape any culpability. There is a element
to not respect the standards
of casting. Yeah. There is an element of casting that is subjective. Yeah. The majority of it is objective. And I'm telling you right now, I don't need to design a esports exam that costs $400 to establish that there is a standard for casting and that there is an objective application of technique that I believe is very important. And I can say that because I'm more experienced than most casters nowadays. So I'll just use my tenure to say that. Sure. It's not all subjective. No, there is a portion of it where it is subjective, and there is a portion where you should allow your style to flourish, but don't just assume it's all subjective. Some casters are just shit. Some casters and some shit casters are the ones that, and I'm not calling out Bok here, to be fair. I think he's totally fine. But there are actually casters that make these kinds of threads being like, I mean, like people just don't understand my art, and you're there just fucking taping a banana to the wall and calling it a fucking classic. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, objectively, you can be bad at casting, and there are lots of casters that get opportunities like this that are objectively bad at casting. let's roll this tape and you tell me just how subjective this is as to whether it's good or bad casting. Roll the tape.
The Cadian's decoy was still up in all this time.
Yeah.
You heard about the Cadian 1v4 with the P250?
I haven't heard of that. How does it go, Chad?
Well, it was a pretty important round. It was for the title.
He actually won it with just that P250. Yeah, I can't believe it.
Nobody was looking, and he managed to sneak his way all the way through the backlines here and shoot Shiro in the back of the head.
Right. And what did he do after that? That's nuts. So he actually shoots the AWP in the back of the head without anyone looking.
Gets the AWP and kills the guy CT.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's knifed him, and he's gotten away with the AWP. I'm starting to get nervous. There's no way. Caden, you can't win Pro League like this. You can't win Pro League like this. No way. Exile's left, 40 seconds and the bomb's on A. Take your time, son. You're about to make the play of your career. Oh my God, 30 seconds. Now, Exile's on ramp. He's got 30 seconds to think this one through. A knife kill? You can't. Cadian, he's thinking about ramp. Jumps
Saw him.
Exile gets the info. He just has to hit this shot, and he's done it for Heroic. The leader, calling well above his years, clearing corners. Oh no! You're an animal! Heroic have done it, and I just can't believe it. 40% of their team, only together since February.
So if you don't like that, you're wrong. It's not subject. You're actually just a dumbass. So what I want to try and point out, Sponge is a caster, Vincent. Shut your mouth. Just shut your fucking mouth. Those two obviously since this year have been casting together, and Sponge makes the transition off of the desk, and Machine was sort of desk hosting for a period of time. But these guys are commentators.
Yeah.
If I hear someone say I don't like this, I'm like, well, okay, that's fair. But I mean, I don't really think that you have the capacity to evaluate what makes good casting. There are a ton of reasons why. That is very good casting. I think the fact that they sort of toy with the idea and the Machine is very ready to allow that to be a reality. And they, it's very early on that Alex actually believes in magic. So great casting from the two of them. Obviously, it includes a lot of the sort of friendly banter, friendly camaraderie there as well. But yeah, I would say that if you don't, I'm sure someone's not going to like it, right? But I think if you can not like it, but then if you try and say that this is like good or bad casting based on your subjective opinion, I'm just going to be like, well, okay, I don't think you actually have the knowledge to evaluate this adequately. Therefore, your opinion to me is very it's not worthwhile. It's worthless. I think we can agree like that, through our careers, we've probably seen examples of this objectively great casting, and a lot of it comes down to technique, and technique, I think it is a repeated approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that isn't just based on how you feel on the day. It's stuff that you learn and that you rigorously apply time and time again.
And I feel like with Valorant too, it feels like somebody mentioned it in the comments, and it goes deeper when it's like Valorant's lifespan as an esport has been escalated, where Benjamin Buttoning this shit to an extent, right? When it comes to where the esport is currently and where the talent and production is, especially in the middle of a pandemic, right? So there will be people that will ask for feedback, get feedback which is legitimate, and then be like, no, sorry, that's just the way that I do things. That's just the way that I cast, which is obviously pretty insulting to the other peers and maybe higher up talent that's giving you that advice. Yeah, exactly. Like if Vansilly's giving me advice and I kind of go, no, you're wrong, then Vansilly's gonna be, all right, fuck you now, I'm off.
Yeah, fuck you, Ryan.
But also, these people will be sat here thinking, why am I not casting Masters or VCT or anything? Why am I not further along in my progression? First of all, even somebody like me that's, I'll be honest, being mopey about the fact that it took so long to get into Europe for multiple reasons. You got to sort of look at it from other esports. If this was Counter-Strike, you're waiting years before you get to this kind of level. So be thankful that you've got that far. Right. It's one of those things where it's like, people in Overwatch have to. There are people have been doing contenders for 3 years waiting for their chance for the Overwatch League that maybe didn't get it this time around. They're fine. They will continue to hone their craft and to improve, and they have done over the past years. If you're kind of going, all right, I didn't get to cast this section, like the closed part of VCT, when I got to do open on multiple cases, and I get to do all of these other things, like check your privilege almost, work on your craft, and kind of remember who's around you. You've got Tastosis coming in, best casted duo maybe in the world when it comes to other games in Korea. Have they got a long way to go in Valorant? Absolutely. You've got all of these Siege casters that we spoke about. You've got Ender that's quitting the LEC, that's potentially going to be doing some Valorant stuff, who play tested the game since day one, man. So he will know his stuff in that regard.
Yep.
It's one of those things that, like, it's a very competitive nature. I get to work with some amazing people now in the VCT, but if I had to wait years before I was able to do it, then that's just part and parcel of it. Continue to improve, make it so it's a mistake that they don't have you, and don't sit there and bitch and moan, especially about other casters that got into that position, because people hear about that shit and they don't like it.
Yep. And there's a time lag, by the way. You can be the best caster for a year, but people don't really start to realize it. Even those that make the hiring decisions, people don't realize that until about a year later. So I just want to remind that you could be at the peak of your game, but people won't realize you're good until a whole year later. At times.
Yes.
That's how the
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah,
works. There's a time lag. Anyway, look, we're talking so much about this, but yeah, I agree that at the moment, look, I like what Bok's doing. He's trying to open up Valorant casting to opportunities to a lot of casters, but the problem is it creates a really variable quality in casting. This is the trade-off you make to get tons of people involved from different sort of fields. But I walked into Valorant respectfully, didn't jump in and take someone's grand final, treated the game like its own thing, and you know, I think I did a good job. So that's how you probably should approach it in my opinion. Anyway, DDK wrote an article about it. You can find that. It's pretty wordy. It's very academic, but it sort of talks about some of the approaches that are important in casting. And me and him have been chatting a bunch since he's been in Montenegro, just back and forth texting each other. And yeah, I really, you know, a lot of this stuff, you want to talk about some of the objective guidelines, this is a great place to start if you want to deal with the technique, but I won't read it out, it's too long.